Welcome back to Spectrum. Tonight we reflect on the electioneering process in Uganda to try and understand how political parties are coping with the outcomes and how they are preparing for future processes. Our guests tonight, Honorable Betty Kamya, former presidential candidate, also representing actually the Uganda Federal Alliance, and Honorable Professor Maurice Ogenga Latigo, Vice President for FDC in charge of Northern.
And by the way, I'm still leader of opposition.
And leader of the opposition. I was putting emphasis in.
I'm also member of parliament for Rubaga.
MP for Rubaga.
Yes, sitting.
Well. Okay, Honorable Latigo, how prepared is the opposition to take power? Very briefly.
How prepared were we?
Is the opposition to take power right now?
No, that question now is not...
in terms of quality of leadership, if you had to form an alternative government?
Well, if you asked us how prepared we were coming into election, we were prepared. We were ready.
Do you have the manpower to create a solid government?
We do. You see, the nature of politics is such that you don't need a huge number of people to do the things. Yeah. Once you have the leadership, and then you identify the correct people to do things. When the NRM came into Kampala, what capacity did they have to control this country other than the guns? But thereafter, they drafted in DPs, they drafted in some elements from other parties, and those people served. Right. I can assure you, if we had won the elections, there are many people from NRM who would have ended up in our...
Oh, some people would have crossed the floor.
No, if we said we are forming a government of national unity, for example.
Yes, okay.
Many people from other parties would have joined.
They've removed their yellow t-shirts.
Absolutely.
Professor Latigo, leader of the opposition, also Vice President in charge of Northern Uganda. Your candidate, Dr. Kizito, rejected the outcome of elections, and he has called for demonstrations. 1. 2, you also lost many seats and votes in the regions.
Including mine.
Well, you lost your own seat.
Yes.
Which you felt were your strongholds. You come from Northern Uganda, near Kidgomagago.
Yeah.
And now one party official, Honorable Kumu, says that your party is partly to blame for the loss. He insists that your headquarters was poorly organized, and that a lot of time was spent on what he calls useless, that's a strong word, useless IPC, which was the Cooperation Forum, which did not bring any fruits. How do you explain this performance?
You know, if you are a party leader at our level, you don't spend time on blames. You spend time on analyzing what happened, looking at the weaknesses that you faced in the process, and correcting it. Blames is just part of the political intrigue that kills parties. There's no party that talks about its own weaknesses. There's no family that stands out and goes to the marketplace and says, my father urinates and wets the bed. No. You deal with that as a family.
Whether drunk or not.
Yes.
You keep quiet about it. You don't go to the market.
But if you don't deal with it
internally,
then that weaknesses will repeat itself as a consequence.
Well, let's hear Honorable Kumu's words. He spoke to our journalists at Parliament today about the FDC performance. We have a recording yesterday.
We shouldn't have wasted time on IPC. The time we should have wasted was to go down and recognize people. If I count all the meetings, the time we spend, the resources we spend on IPC meetings, what has it brought? Can you tell me IPC MPs that have come, apart from Subi? So, really, for me, I think we blundered from the beginning instead of preparing time for vote protection. And I'm ready to tell my party officials that. And I want to be frank about it. There has been a lot of intrigue within FDC between people who were part of the reform agenda and people who are not part of the reform agenda. And some people, they never wished Dr. Besigye well to win this election. They wanted Dr. Besigye to lose this election so that they can have an excuse and say, you know, he has become unpopular. And that is not a party spirit. And I know them. And this is not fair. When we were still in the reform agenda, we were a force. We were strong. Today in FDC we have expanded. But where has the force gone? Intrigue. Now we are nursing our wounds because partially of our own internal problem. When it comes to the succession of FDC, I would only request that our brothers in Western Uganda should also give space, because we must show that the party is national in character. And this, I'm not going to shy about it. This must be the issue, that we either get an FDC leader from Buganda, whom we shall confront as for party president, or from the east, or from the north. The west has had their time. So those who are nursing ambitions from Western Uganda of replacing Dr. Besigye should prepare to be deputies.
Honorable Kamya, can you comment about these succession battles within the FDC against the background of what he's just said?
Well, I think it was coming. Because once a leader, even a king who is very old, succession battles begin within the sons, the family.
Right.
It does start. So
they begin to serve him meat to get his favor.
With the king on exit, the succession battles, but perhaps the style and the manner of bringing it was a little hasty and maybe not so good for the party. But I think it was going to come. There are always succession battles.
Does it make sense to say the next leader must not come from the West?
I think, my problem with FDC, at the time that I started my problems with FDC, which I really don't want to go back into because we talked about that, it was almost around the same thing. Because for me, I was saying this term was negotiated. Can we keep the gentleman's agreement, in my understanding? And that's basically what Honorable Okumi is saying, that we should have a gentleman's agreement on how to select our leaders so that we project a national character.
So you support that concept?
You also need, you need to build a party along. I mean, DP tried that with Mao. It may not be successful yet, but it could have been the right thing to do if you want to project the party as a national party.
Professor Latigo, does that
Although
work?
you cannot write it in black and white,
right? But
I think in your subconscious, you should be mindful about those things.
Professor Latigo.
Well, I'm an academician.
Yes.
And a scientist. I supervise very many students at master's and PhD levels.
Yes.
I never ask where they come from. I never ask their religion. I look at their competencies. I look at their weaknesses. My job is to make sure that the weak become strong and the competent excel. That's how I handle politics. I have no tribal face to it. I have no regional face to it. I look at the challenge. I look at the people around which I can work, and I ask myself, who can best fulfill what we want to achieve? For example, there were people who wanted a change at the time that Dr. Besigye was to contest as a party leader and presidential candidate for the second time. And they had good reasons to suggest that by the record, expected probability, Dr. Besigye would probably not perform well. But you ask yourself, okay, if an alternative candidate came, what would happen? First of all, probably the party would have broken. And therefore, what you project as what would be the outcome for an alternative would not come. And people irrationally then went to say Dr. Besigye must go. But in that, I could see a major rift within our party. Probably FDC would have collapsed. Now, it is more important, as far as I'm concerned, for us to lose an election than to lose the party. Because once we lose the party, then all the efforts that we put in building it would have been wasted. And this is the same argument I hear. You start defining the character of party leadership in terms of tribe and regions, you have killed the party.
No, but I mean, realistically, if you want to be realistic, for instance, Professor Latigo, on the floor of Parliament, I remember Honorable Chanjo challenging, and we're always challenging government. Why are all the leadership of the army coming from the West? Why is it the West that is getting all these jobs? And it became a national concern.
No, because what we are talking about is just one position.
Okay.
The deputies are spread all over Uganda. And out of the four deputies that are us, any of us could offer himself. I could offer myself.
All right. I would like us to be joined by Honorable Winnie Byanyima, who's on the line. But before we do that, let's look at some of very, very quickly the statistics for this presidential election. We had 8 candidates, even though it looked like a duo between 4 sets. The presidential that just ended. We had 2 candidates came from Western Uganda. Their combined vote was about 94%. 2 candidates came from the north. Their combined vote was just under 4%. 4 candidates came from Uganda. Their combined vote was around 3%. When you look at this, it looked, like I said at the start, it looked like a bit 4 contests between 2 men. The 2 Western Uganda 2 candidates, both were from Western Uganda. They are the only candidates who got more than 1 million votes. only two candidates from the north. They are the only ones who got over 100,000 votes. Another set of two candidates, Betty Kamya and Betty Bwanika, got 50,000 votes, in the 50,000s. Another set of two, it doesn't have to mean anything really. Another set of two got 30,000 votes. Two candidates from Western Uganda are leaders made in such a way that only one region maybe can give us good cattle keepers, another region can give us commanders in the army.
You see, when Obote was president, the people were complaining about the North dominating.
Maybe there's something that we don't know. The milk they take.
You know, this is the challenge of history. No, I mean, this is the challenge of history.
Right.
The circumstance that brought in President Museveni is still the same operative circumstance.
Okay.
The military around him and things like that.
All right. Let's hear from Honorable Bwini Byanyima. All right. Honorable Byanyima, you're welcome to Spectrum.
Thank you.
Well, we're glad to have you. Would you like to talk to us about this topic?
I actually wanted to speak to you because I was listening in very carefully to the discussion, which is very interesting, and I wanted to chip in on a number of things. First of all,